Hey guys, Ed from Paranormal Inc. Ohio, back at it again with another podcast episode. Tonight's podcast episode is about another werewolf. I know I'm huge in the werewolves, and this one was a good one too because it has Ed and Lorraine Warren tied into it as well. So, Bill Ramsey was just one more Essex child for almost the first decade of his life. Back on one Saturday afternoon, sometime during 1952, the Southend born and bred lad was occupied in play in his parents' back garden when an icy wind swept through. It had a major effect on him. Not only did he feel nauseous, but he also felt peculiar sensations too. He froze. Everything froze on his very skin. The precipitation froze. And a foul stench swept all over him. Two things stuck in his mind, though. One was an overwhelming temptation to head towards the closet. I'm sorry, I can't even read my own writing, guys. Head towards the closest beach, boarding a ship. The other was more primal, and in some ways easier to digest: wolves. But the time the voice of his mother had managed to reach his subconscious, he had found himself close to the garden fence, without no real recollection of getting there. Some external force had took over his mobility and took complete control of the youngster. Ramsey had managed to uproot a heft fence post that even his father would have had problems with, and was swinging it around wildly. That alone may have convinced his parents to take a step back, but what he did next would get anyone to recoil. Bill lunged at the meshing bordering to the garden and sank his teeth into it. This was not a subtle nibble, however. It was a fully fledged gnawing, similar to what an animal may have been capable of. His parents could only watch on in horror until their son eventually appeared to calm down. It took some time, but eventually it did happen. Once he had become his regular self again, and whatever took a hold of him and disappeared, both his parents emerged from the house. For the next 15 years, nothing more happened of any type. It likely goes without saying that precautions and examinations will have been made and or taken place. By the time that Ramsey had entered maturity and was halfway through his 20s, he had married and fathered some children of his own. The initial couple of years of his marriage had a similar theme. He would have regular nightmares about feelings of dread and unease. A common image would see him several steps behind her. When she turned to face him, she would flee in terror. About 18 months after he suffered the last of these nightmares, he awoke during one night and thought that he heard the sounds of something panting somewhere in the bedroom. Turns out, it was Bill. For another 15 years, the life of Bill Ramsey fell into obscurity that would change dramatically as the 1980s rolled onwards. During one evening out socializing with friends in 1983, Bill began to feel the onset of the same senses that he experienced decades before in his parents' back garden. He made his excuses and headed into the toilet. Once there, he saw a reflection of a werewolf staring back at him in the mirror. This was just a mere precursor of what was about to happen on their way home. The taxi ride should have been uneventful. Some point during the trip, and without any prior warning, Bill's hands curled into claws, and he bit the leg of his fellow passenger. The driver kept his cool, stopped the car in the middle of the street, and tried to haul Bill off. For several minutes, the struggle took place until whatever took control had vanished once again. As Christmas of the same year approached, Ramsey began to feel pains inside his chest. Fearful of potential cardiac arrest, he immediately checked himself into the local hospital. Ramsey was tested for his blood pressure. During this exam, and without any real warning, Ramsey sank his teeth into the arm of the nurse. Ramsey then sprinted through the emergency room and wards. Those who witnessed this bizarre act believed that he was like a man possessed and ran with both shoulders hunched and fingers curled into talons. Ramsey pared his lips like a rabid animal. As he moved, Ramsey was not prepared to stop for no one. Anyone unfortunate enough to have been in his way was knocked over with superhuman strength. It took a team of several orderlies to put a stop to this rampage. The police officer did manage to snap some handcuffs on the Ramsey's wrists, but even this threatened to be insufficient. Only the use of a tranquilizer brought the episode to a close. The following morning, all the effects had worn off, and doctors were more receptive to the version of events from Bill himself. It was decided that the best thing to do was to keep him for observation. However, he was a voluntary patient. There was no legal requirement to do so. Bill decided against this. Within the space of 2 months, he was back, and he had been spending time with his mother when he began to feel the same urges and senses. The lone nurse that attended Ramsey on this occasion felt her life was at risk and departed to find a doctor. Ramsey's rage spilled over once more, for 4 attending police officers overheard the commotion and managed to surround Ramsey. He resisted for several seconds, sharing and growling at each of them. It took all 4 to finally restrain the man. One of the officers